I didn't think that I would need, or I didn't think that it would be appropriate that I would have to make a video like this right now, specifically for the whole situation that's going on. But I feel like it's necessary because a lot of people are going to ask, is it something that needs to be talked about? Is it something that needs to be covered? Is it something that needs to, yada, yada, yada. What I think, specifically in this situation, is something that may surprise you, but at the same time, it's something that may not surprise a lot of people. So, let's cover why I think Acolyte shouldn't be renewed. So I think that most people can agree, specifically if you've seen The Acolyte. And if you want to hear my review of The Acolyte, go watch it. Go watch that video, and then if you want to come back to this video so that we can continue this discussion, we could do that as well. But I feel like it's important that we discuss this as a whole. So if you want to go watch my review of The Acolyte, go watch the review of The Acolyte, and then come back, and then we can discuss this so that it's more of a good flow, because then we can have an actual discussion about this. So let's think a little bit about this. The Acolyte itself, is the story good? I can't say the story is good. I can't, because Star Wars, and the team at Lucasfilm, I should say, have done better. They have done way better. I mean, I'm going to be very honest. If you put The Acolyte right next to Ahsoka is the better show. If I take The Acolyte and I put it next to The Mandalorian is still the better show. If I take Andor and put it next to The Acolyte, Andor is much better than The Acolyte. So what I'm trying to say is this. We, as fans, me as a fan of Star Wars, I expect to be blown away. I expect to be blown away by things that I see from Star Wars. People, when they talk about the first season of The Mandalorian, they're blown away. They're taken aback. They're like, oh my god, this is the type of Star Wars I'm looking for. When people talk about Rogue One, they say, this is the Star Wars I'm looking for. This is exactly this type of Star Wars I'm looking for. When they talk about Ahsoka, this is the Star Wars they're looking for. Unfortunately, what brought The Acolyte down was the writing and the story's structure. That's the only two issues that I see with The Acolyte. What brought it down were those two things. Now, what part of this whole experience am I upset about? Am I upset that the actors won't get a chance to add on to the arc that they set up in this one season? Yeah, I'm upset. I'm upset that they won't have this chance to go back. Am I upset that they don't have an opportunity now for another season? Yeah, I'm upset because I think the acting was great. The acting was great. I have no qualms with the acting or the actors. The actors did great. I want to re-emphasize this. The actors did great. All the actors in the show did great. They did a fantastic job with what they were given. Fantastic. The problem was not the actors. The actors were great. The story wasn't. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The story wasn't great. The story's structure wasn't great. And I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you that the story structure wasn't great. I'm going to ask you a question right now, and I want you down in the comments and answer this question to its true intent. Like, stop and think about it for a second and then answer. Do you think the story would have been better if instead of telling me that these two girls were twins at the beginning of the story, wouldn't it have been better if the show had made us think that there was only one character this whole entire time, and in fact, towards the end of the season, instead tell us on the 7th episode that they are twins? Don't tell me that wouldn't have made it a better show. Like, they could have completely hid all the story aspects of the show, but they could have hidden the most important and impactful story element to the end of the story, because then it would have made me be more curious about who this pairing was, or why they were going for this. You would have built intrigue to the story. You would have built momentum, What if instead we all knew it was May the whole entire time? Let's say it was just May the entire time, and then finally, on the 7th episode, it's like the last 2 or 3 minutes of the episode, we see a shadowy figure pop up out of nowhere. We have this like really crazy chase sequence, them going through, caverns and there's like explosions happening, blah, 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 blah. And then, May reaches a cliff. She's close by to a cliff. This whole entire mountain is like, breaking apart. And then suddenly, a shadowy figure appears. A shadowy figure out of nowhere appears. And then we hear like the song playing. It could have been like a very distorted version of the Force theme or something. And it's just a girl. We don't see her face in its entirety, but we can make out something of her face. And it makes us think, who could it be? And why does it look like the main character? Suddenly, events in the show would start to stack up, and you're like, holy cow! And then there you build your twist. You build your twist toward the end of the story, not at the beginning of the story. Like, it just doesn't make sense. That's why it's called a twist. Because you expect the story to go one way, and then suddenly it's flipped on its head, and it goes in a completely different direction. That's why it's called a twist. Don't give me your twist in the first 1 or 2 episodes, because you're going to lose people. You're just going to lose people in its entirety, And give me characters that I can fall in love with. When I watch Ahsoka, mind you, I'm not someone who watched the Clone Wars. I'm not someone who watched, Rebels. I don't watch these shows. I didn't watch them. But when I watch Ahsoka, when I watch the show Ahsoka, I have to say, that's Star Wars. When I watch Andor, as much as the story doesn't quite sit with me in certain areas, I can say wholeheartedly, Andor, that's Star Wars. When I watch Rogue One, same thing, that's Star Wars. When I watch, the original series, that's Star Wars. When I see the prequel series nowadays, that's Star Wars, And I'm even going to say the one thing that most people are not even considering, but here's the truth. The sequel trilogy. You can say all you want, certain aspects of it, or whatever. That's Star Wars. That's the definition of Star Wars. It's a good story. It's building a story from the ground up, You can criticize the sequel trilogy. I'm not going to be mad, because, a lot of people don't like the sequel trilogy as much as they like, say, the prequel trilogy, or so on and so forth. But ultimately, that's the case. They didn't deliver. And that's the problem. And that's why it was canceled. It's not because the actors did a bad job, you know? And I hate it. Listen to me. If there's one thing that pisses me off, is when I hear people going directly to actors and shouting their grievances, saying like, oh, you did a bad job, you did this, you did that. Dude, listen, it's not the actor's fault. I'm gonna tell you the quiet part out loud. It's not the actor's fault. It's not. They are given a job. And whether or not they make a good job or not is entirely in the studio's hands, not the actor's hands. So you have to be focused enough to understand that. Now, whether or not they decide at some point to renew the Acolyte, I don't know. But I want you to know, in part, I am very glad that they decided to cancel the Acolyte, because it shows to me that they saw what happened. They understood that this show that was approved, based on my knowledge in terms of timeline, this was approved by Bob Chapek. And Bob Chapek, as we know, wanted to pump out as many shows as possible onto streaming because that's what he wanted to promote. He wanted to promote Disney Plus. Since I know that this was a Bob Chapek approved show, I'm not mad at Disney. I'm not. Because I know that this wasn't Disney at its best. This wasn't. Now, we do have Skeleton Crew to look forward to, but I know for a fact The Acolyte was not Disney at its best. It wasn't even Star Wars at its best. So a lot of people are going to come out and say like, no, this show should have continued. They should have added another season. Why? Because you want to know about Darth Plagueis? They could just make a new show about Darth Plagueis that continues the story, that brings the characters over. It doesn't have to be called The Acolyte. It could be something completely different. Understand this. If they created an arc, if they created, let's say, the seed of this show, of The Acolyte, just know that they might go forward and do something different with these characters. These characters have not died. I would like to remind you guys. They did not die. Okay? These characters are still very much alive. You know, if they wanted to bring back Soul, they can. You know, he can be a Force ghost. You know, they can bring back Manny Jacinto. They can bring back Amanda Stenberg. I mean, they can bring back these people. So it's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched that Disney could cancel The Acolyte and make a new show with a completely different name. They call it Star Wars Rise of Darkness. They called something else. They could have completely changed the name. They can do that. There's nothing stopping Disney from using these characters in another series. And I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, now we won't know this or that. Dude, Disney can still use these characters in other projects. They can still use this story, the basis that this story built, to build a different story and tell it even better than this show did. So don't be upset. Don't be upset. I feel like a lot of people are upset for no reason right now. Oh, they're not renewing the show. Good thing that they're not renewing the show. You know why? Because they know very well that they can do better. So if they can do better, then that's good for us as fans. So think of it like this. They canceled The Acolyte. Good for them. Because now they're going to work twice as hard to bring us something good. Why not? This is a great opportunistic moment for Disney and for Lucasfilm. So think about it. They're probably going to deliver something even better with these characters next. And it doesn't have to be called The Acolyte. It can be something completely different. So come on. Join in my optimism, okay? Trust me. It doesn't need to be renewed. The Acolyte doesn't need to be renewed because they're going to do something much cooler with these characters. I'm pretty sure of it. And this is where I throw it over to you. What do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think that this could be an opportunity for Disney to actually take these characters in a new direction, you know? I think so. I think this could be an opportunity. Or maybe you don't think that. Maybe you think that this story sucked and they shouldn't even think about this story. Let me know. I want to know. I want to have this discussion with you. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go live on this channel. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.
Scrolling through YouTube, same old routine, then bam, movie savant, what a scene. Trivia bombshells dropping knowledge like rain. Forget the dishes, gotta watch it again. Movie buffs unite, savants to place. Subscribe and hit the bell, don't leave a trace. Next level knowledge keeps you in the loop. Savants got the scoop, ain't nothing to recoup.